Welcome back to the James McGee Show. I am your host. I am James McGee. I got to get used to this mic. So yesterday we talked about the you know politicians and what they really think about the American voter and why things go the way they do. They depend on voter amnesia, you forgetting their promises, you forgetting they didn't uphold their word, and stupidity. They depend on stupidity. And that's what politicians think. Politicians think you are too stupid. And I'm not saying it critical. Look, I'm an everyday man. Uh, I'm not real bright, but I have dedicated my life upon retirement. I was involved in politics for years, but I research these things. The average person does not have the time or desire to obsessively research the topics that we talk about. Well, that's why you have me. I have nothing else to do. I'm retired. I have a little side business, but I retired, and this is my passion. So my passion is to make sure they aren't duping you, to show you what they're doing. And one talent that I have, I kind of have a crystal ball with this. I can see those things. I'm like, okay, I can see this coming. And we talked about yesterday of how they do it. So today what we're going to talk about is the result. So the result of their them thinking you're stupid, and the result of them taking advantage of your amnesia is we're flooded now with these Democratic Socialist mayors, and it's a scary and alarming thing. Last week when I talked about nurses, talked about teachers, about the so many nurses and teachers have become anti-cop, and it has shocked me with the death of Charlie Kirk, and then this ICE stuff. How many nurses and teachers are on board? Well, I credited that with the it's no secret that our university system has totally become just a woke, just a cesspool, and they're indoctrinating our young people. Well, okay, these young people that they're being indoctrinated are now in their 30s, the millennials, and we're seeing the result of that. So a couple years ago, there was a big push of the Democrat establishment, billionaires, and the most concerning thing is the amount of money that's coming from foreign countries, attacking local district attorneys, going after incumbent district attorneys, and putting very progressive, very liberal, anti-cop district attorneys in office. They actually tried to do that in my area. We're like, why would they mess with our area? Well, here's the blueprint. They're going to destroy this country. Not going to. Let me rephrase that. They are destroying this country brick by brick. See, we get so concerned, we get so in tune with the federal government, but we don't realize they really don't control this country. Very little, and we're so fixated on president and Congress. What do? They do nothing. They accomplish nothing, and they do nothing. Well, I'm not saying that the people that are doing this stupid. They're not stupid. They're very calculated. They're very smart, and they're well funded. They're getting money from billionaires. They're getting money from foreign countries, and they're going to take this country over. Rephrase that again. They're taking this country over little by little. They're destroying it brick by brick. So their push with the district attorneys was to have soft on crime, criminal justice reform, empty the prisons. Well, what better way to do it with local district attorneys? So they just flooded it all over the nation. And then, we started seeing, good morning, Britt. So we started seeing that. We're like, hey, what's going on? because we weren't paying attention. The average voter, we weren't paying attention. And then all of a sudden, George Soros was putting all these local DAs out of office, putting his people in office. And look at the result. Crime went up, homelessness goes up. All this happens when you do the things that they did. So now their target is socialist mayors. Well, the most popular, of course, is Mamdani. Well, Mamdani is not the only one. Mamdani is just the most the most famous one or infamous one. He's it's New York City, but it's actually worse in some areas. It's actually worse to me in Seattle. And what we're not, while we're not paying attention, this is what they're doing. They're putting people who are absolutely unqualified. Why are they putting people who are unqualified? Because they want to control them. They're putting puppets in office so the billionaires like George Soros can control them. There's no greater example than this fucking buffoon right here. I'm going to play this video. We're going to move on to some other mayors, but she is the target today. What a complete fucking disaster. What a terrible person. What an unqualified person. And just a fucking bitch is what she is.
Armed ICE agents in an unmarked vehicle detained 3 North Seattle neighbors at Evergreen Washelli Cemetery. I am furious at the federal government's abuse of power. It is unacceptable to kidnap people who are simply going about their lives. There is no place for this in Seattle. This latest abuse comes on the heels of the murder of Renee Nicole Good in Minneapolis by federal agents. Renee was a poet, a caring neighbor, and a mother, someone with a family whose community is now grieving unimaginable loss. These are not abstractions. These are real people, real families, and real harm. I know many people in our community are frightened and outraged about the way ICE and other federal enforcement agencies are being deliberately deployed across the country to intimidate and harm our communities. I am heartbroken and outraged too. This moment demands action. Here's what we're doing. Seattle is a welcoming city. We already have laws in place that forbid our local police from aiding ICE in most instances. The police will adhere to these laws. That's an important step. But it's also true that we have limited authority with regard to the actions of federal agencies. And I know that our existing laws are not enough to keep people safe. So I'm working with Police Chief Barnes, City Attorney Evans, immigrant rights groups, and local leaders to identify every possible legal argument, public resource, and creative tool.
I can't listen to this bitch anymore. So a couple things. First off, Renee Good was nothing but a loser, white liberal bitch like you. She was no good, and she was killed by her own because of her own actions while committing a crime. So there you go there. So before we talk about her, let's talk about, before we talk about this piece of shit mayor, let's talk about, before we talk about her non-qualifications and dive into her, let's talk about a couple things on this video. You notice that the liberals love to come up with different terms. They're always coming up with another term. Now it's our neighbors. No, they're illegal aliens. That's the legal term for them. You know, they went from illegal aliens to undocumented, and undocumented wasn't good enough. Now, our neighbors. That's what Jacob Frey and Tim Walz came up with. Our neighbors. Who are your neighbors? What are you talking about, the neighbors? So when they say our neighbors, they're making people think of the old lady with the picket fence. We got to protect the old lady with the picket fence. No, you're protecting criminals. Most of the ones that ICE is going after is criminals, people who've committed crimes, people with criminal histories. But any of them who are here, have entered or stayed illegally, they are criminals. Quit gaslighting us and talk about it's a civil offense. It's not a civil offense. They are criminals. So that's what they do. And she has ordered her cops she is trying to, I think they're fighting back, and they should, to investigate and to actually follow ICE agents around and report where they are. Well, that's absolutely illegal. So I want to know where Mark Kelly and the rest of those Mamalukes that got on, that did this video about Trump with the unlawful orders. Where are you at now? Because when they did that, there were no unlawful orders. That Trump had not issued an unlawful order. But this lady, and I say lady very loosely, how about this white liberal bitch is issuing unlawful orders. And these police officers do not have to follow them. I think the union's gotten involved. I'm going to look more into that. But they should. They absolutely should. These cops do not have to follow these orders. It is absolutely dangerous. So she's going to have cops confronting and investigating and stopping other cops. But that's what happens when elections has consequences. And with Minneapolis, I've said this about New York. I've said this about Minneapolis. Like, fuck them. This is what they elected. This is what they wanted. You can reap what you sow. But you know what? I don't know anybody in Minneapolis. So I think everybody in Minneapolis is Alex Preddy and Renee Good. That's what I think, because I don't know anybody in Minneapolis. I don't know anybody in New York. But you know what? One of my closest friends from childhood, stand-up guy, lives in Seattle. Now, I don't know if he lives in the city limits. I know he works in the city limits. He's like us. He's a conservative. He's a family man. So that shows me, I'm like, hey, hold on a second. I can't say that about Seattle because I know my friend didn't wish for this. I know my friend, and probably he's got a circle of friends. I'm sure they're like him. He's not hanging out with liberals like that. So they are the forgotten citizen. They're the forgotten voter, because they are infiltrating these cities by putting these socialists in office. So I don't know she just won in 2025. She just took office, been in office a couple of weeks. So what she ran against a one-term incumbent, from what I gather. Now, I don't know anything about him. I mean, if he was elected in Seattle 4 years ago, he probably wasn't up to what I think a standard of a mayor is. But by all accounts, he was a moderate. Well, he wasn't. He was too moderate, apparently, for the liberal mafia. So the liberal mafia puts him out of office. This is what they elect. Okay. This woman is just like what Mamdani, and I've covered Mamdani several times. She never had a job. She went to college in Europe. She never had a job. She couldn't get a job. You know what she does? She starts a nonprofit, puts herself in charge of it, and gets a salary. It's the Union of the Public Transportation and Worker she's the co-founder, executive director. This was before she was mayor of the Transit Riders Union, a group that focuses on public transportation and workers' rights. So she couldn't find a job. So she forms a nonprofit. Okay. Well, where these NGOs, all the corruption with these NGOs. I'm sure she somehow scammed some federal money. So there was a union for the public transit to make the bus riders. But what the fuck does that even mean? Why would we give money to that? But so she couldn't find a job. She was this is her, and she admitted to this. She's the one that put this out. She was still her and her husband and her child was living in a one-bedroom apartment and was still being supported by her parents. But she gets elected mayor. She's never had a job, and that has zero qualifications. So how does a person like that get elected? The liberal mafia. Most people don't realize the money it takes to win an election in the United States. How expensive, I firsthand know this, how expensive it is. I guarantee you, she had to raise several $1 million. How does a broke ass bitch like this raise several $1 million? She doesn't. They raised it for her because she was the chosen one. They went found a puppet. They went found a puppet. And they got her elected. This is what they're doing all over the country. They did it with the DAs. Now they're doing it with the mayors. And they're going to take this country down brick by brick by using this philosophy. This is for real. This is not a joke. This is not a fucking game. This is what they are doing. This is the blueprint. I'm going to cover more tomorrow because I'll concentrate more on her. Well, she needed it. But you've got Brandon Scott in Baltimore, pretty much same qualifications as her, done nothing. And you know what happened with him? He just got caught with a $168,000 vehicle purchased by the city. And when they confronted him, what did he do? Racism? No, it's not because you're black, because you're a criminal. Use public money in a broke ass city with a big homeless problem, big crime problem. But that's what they do. That's what the Somalians did. Every time they were kind of confronted, they'd holler racism. And us white people, we fear that. Well, this one doesn't. And we got to stop fearing that because they are criminals. So tomorrow we'll cover Mamdani with the disaster. I've said this so many times, and unfortunately, I keep being proven right that liberals are terrible at crisis management, crisis leadership. If you can't lead during a crisis, that's number one priority. Now, Katie Wilson has not been tested by, we know the result of that. Hope for my friends in Seattle that they don't have a crisis because they're in terrible hands. It's a disaster. We're going to hit Mamdani tomorrow with, he failed. It snowed. They failed because he replaced all the good leaders that they had in the city with his people and their failures. So let's go to Mama Luke of the day. Well, it doesn't, it won't be a surprise that Mama Luke of the day is Mayor Katie Wilson. Miss Mayor, white liberal lady, you're a disaster. You're a piece of shit. You have zero experience. You're way over your head. But here's the thing that I want to say the most. Let those cops be cops. You have no clue how to be a cop. You are giving unlawful orders. You are just a total disaster. And you're actually an insult to Mama Luke's. I shouldn't even call you a Mama Luke because you're such a different level of a Mama Luke. But you are proven in your first couple weeks in office, what kind of mayor you're going to be. You're a complete disaster. Tomorrow, we're going to hit some of these other mayors. We're going to talk about Jacob Frey more. We're going to talk about Mamdani. And we'll probably do this for the rest of the week because I really need to show you more of the blueprint. Like I said yesterday, we talked about how they're doing it, and they depend on what they label as the stupid voter and us having amnesia. Well, the result is these liberal mayors, that's where the target is, and I'm going to dedicate the rest of the week at least on exposing the liberal mayors that they've put in. They have put in office. It is a very, very scary situation, and we have got to recognize this and do something about it because they're doing it all over the nation. Until tomorrow, appreciate you tuning in today. Until tomorrow, remember, like I say every day, no one is coming to save you, especially these liberal fucking mayors. And the world does not give a fuck. McGee is out.